Let's continue learning about how computers store data. As we learned earlier, computers use the binary system, which has only two numbers, 1 and 0. The word that's used to describe these binary digits, which can be either 1 or 0, is a bit, B-I-T. It's short for binary digit, and it's the smallest unit of data in a computer. Now, these bits, these ones and zeros, are used to store all kinds of information, from the text that appears on your screen, to the colors of an image, to the sounds that come out of your speakers. To store information like this, we use a bunch of bits together. The number of bits we have determines how much information we can store. So, for our next term, it turns out if you take 8 of these bits, 8 of these ones and zeros, and put them together, that's called a byte. Sounds like a mouthful of food, but it's spelled with a Y, and it refers to 8 bits put together. In everyday terms, you can think of one byte as the amount of space it takes to store one single letter or symbol in a text document. So if you wrote a short story with 1,000 words, this would require about 1,000 bytes of storage space. That brings us to our next term. If you take 1,000 bytes and put them together, that's called a kilobyte, often abbreviated as KB or just K. Now, I will mention just once that technically there are 1024 bytes in a kilobyte, and that's because computers use binary and everything comes in powers of 2. That said, it doesn't really matter, and it's okay to think of a kilobyte as simply 1000 bytes, similar to how a kilometer is 1000 meters, or a kilogram is 1000 grams. 1 kilobyte is enough space to hold about 2 pages of text. Back in the late 1970s and early 1980s, the 5¼ inch floppy disk was a popular storage option. It could hold 360 kilobytes of information. So now, what's it called if you have 1,000 kilobytes? It's called a megabyte, often abbreviated as capital MB. 1 megabyte is enough space to hold about 5 large books, or 1 photo, or 1 minute of music. This was a 3½ inch floppy disk back in the 1980s that held 1.4 megabytes of data, which was pretty good at the time because most files were pretty small. Alright, now you're probably wondering, what's it called if you have 1,000 megabytes? 1,000 megabytes is called a gigabyte. And it's enough space to hold about 400 books, or 1,000 pictures, or 16 hours of music. By the mid-1990s, you could buy a 1 gigabyte hard drive for a couple $100. Today, you can buy a 1 gigabyte flash drive for about $5. Okay, so what's it called when you have 1,000 gigabytes? 1,000 gigabytes is called a terabyte and is often abbreviated as TB. It's enough space to hold about 400,000 large books. That's 30 school libraries, 1,000,000 pictures, or 2 years of continuous music. Today, you can buy a 1 terabyte hard drive for under $50. Yes, it's pretty amazing. So, to recap, we talked about bits, how there are 8 bits in 1 byte, how there are 1,000 bytes in 1 kilobyte, and 1,000 kilobytes in 1 megabyte, and 1,000 megabytes in 1 gigabyte, and 1,000 gigabytes in 1 terabyte. I hope you've enjoyed this video and that you have a better understanding of digital storage terminology.